Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Coffee with the Commish. Knocking out all these player prop markets one by one, leading up to the big game on Sunday. We've gone through the quarterbacks. We've gone through the running backs. I got my man Liam jumping back again, talking about the receivers. Welcome back, dude.
Absolute pleasure to be here, my brother. Let's get it rolling.
Could not agree more, man. I think the wide receiver market is replete with opportunity in this game. The first spot that I just really love in this spot is AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards. I think we talked about it in another video with the Boston Scott. Like, you got to be prepared to look like a little bit of an idiot if you're taking some money here. But AJ Brown has just talked so much about wanting the ball. He's been heavily targeted. Even the last couple of weeks, he's had less than 30 receiving yards in both of these playoff games to this point for the Eagles. But he was targeted 8 times against the 49ers. In a game that they didn't throw the ball at all in the second half, he was targeted 6 times against the Giants, was missed a couple of times downfield. I'll pull up props.cash. I'll just take you through visually what I'm looking at here with AJ Brown. And again, we grabbed this number at 70.5 in our Discord. Depends where you're looking at on the market. That's moved to as high as 72.5 in some places. But AJ Brown has eclipsed this number at a pretty decent rate this year. 9 out of 19 games, which of course is negative 50%, right? You wouldn't take that if you're just betting purely on that. But if you look at the games that he's hit, he's gone way over on this number. So personally for me, I think this is a game where you could take him 100 plus receiving yards. I mean, PointsBet had this number at plus 300 if you want to take him to get to the century mark. He's got a great matchup. I mean, if you look at the Pro Football Focus matchup in this game, someone, either DeVonta Smith or AJ Brown, is going to get a decent amount of snaps against Jalen Watson, who graded far worse than league average in coverage grade this season. It's going to be a high-scoring game, is what the market is telling us, with the total at 50.5 right now. We have the over 1.5 on Jalen Hurts for the touchdowns. Looks like a positive play. Mahomes over 1.5. Like, there should be points in this game. There should be a need to throw the football. Philadelphia should not come out of this game with a 30-point victory against a very talented Kansas City Chiefs team. AJ Brown has just been fantastic. Heavily targeted. Number 1 receiver on the Eagles for good reason. He's got a big size advantage as well in this spot. He's just a big dude. 70.5 yards, I think it's just a fantastic spot to target him. But again, if you're looking for something a little bit more worth your return, 100 plus, you can get that plus 260 on FanDuel, plus 300 at PointsBet. I'm curious what you think on this one, Liam. I'm not a huge AJ Brown fan. I haven't bet the guy at all during the regular season, but I find myself liking him more and more in the Super Bowl the more that I look at the information here.
Yeah, I can't really push back too much. When you look at somebody like AJ Brown, you know going in, going to be a popular side, right? He's on the team that is the public side, the sharp side. Like, a lot of people like the Eagles this week. No problem there. I think that this is the reason why. You know, they got a very talented quarterback. They've got very good running back core. We talked about the committee core for the running backs, but now we're looking at the wide receivers, which are what's very special about the Eagles. They've got DeVonta Smith as well. You can't just provide all the attention to one receiver because it will open you up for damage in other areas. And I think that that's part of the reason why AJ Brown is such a threat in this game. AJ Brown, big game potential, big game player. Also, when you look at somebody that's going to get, opportunities to break away for some extra yards after the catch, I think AJ Brown fits the bill there. Big wide receiver, like you mentioned, fast, can break away from a play. And I think that the trap line here might be on his receptions, right? Because if you look, there's been some, very heavy volume that's come in that has not pushed this off plus money at the over 5.5 reception total. But me and you were talking about a little bit before we went on air that when he was having these games where he's getting even just 5 receptions, he has gone over 60 yards every single time that he's gotten 5+ receptions. When he's gone over that, when he's hit, I believe 6 receptions, he's averaging over 100 yards per game. So I think that the way to play him is to look towards his yards total here. He could break away on one big 50-yard catch and get you there. You understand? But if we're going for the receptions, he is going to be somebody that they prioritize in coverage. We just saw he's gone under the reception total in some of these recent games. So I think that overall, the yardage is the much better way to play him. Yes, it's going to be a little bit public. Yes, it's going to get some activity, but we've also seen corresponding respect in the market. The number opened up lower. It's now gone, like you mentioned, in a Discord, dropped it at 70.5. It's up to 72.5, widely available total. Would I be surprised if it closed 75? No. He's going to be a public side. People are still going to want to come in on the over. So I would not be surprised if we see this number continue to climb, but it closes at plus money, maybe to the over yard. So this is an interesting market. It's not to say that it's a very easy and predictable one. I think the safe route, if you're willing to eat a little chalk, is to take that over 59.5. It's available at minus 182, I believe, on Bet Rivers, all the way at minus 225 on FanDuel. So basically a 5% implied edge that you're getting at Bet Rivers compared to FanDuel. It's a no-brainer at that stage. Also, we just talked about, they are pricing him to go land on 5 receptions. Every game he's landed 5 receptions, he's gone over this total. The closest he ever came was like 60, I think he landed on. Other than that, he's normally getting 65, 68, or over that, over 100 in some of these games. So again, I think he's the most dynamic receiving threat on the Eagles. I think he's a great bet.
Yeah, just a couple of supporting points here, and I'll pull up his game log as well so people can look at this right as we're talking about it. The games when he's had exactly 5 receptions, 69 yards against the Vikings, 85 against Washington. He had 95 against Jacksonville, 67 against Dallas. Indy up here. This was the game that Liam, you were talking about where he had exactly 60. I mean, and then you look at the games with 6. He's had 100 plus yards in every single one of those games with 6. So I like him. I like him to have a big game in this spot. I wrote about it in the Fantasy Labs article I did too, looking at the Super Bowl MVP market. And if you're not on one of the quarterbacks, I think AJ Brown makes a ton of sense because he's shown that he has the ability to go way past 100 yards. He's had multiple touchdowns in a number of games this year. I think if you're looking at a guy who will show up in a moment like this, AJ Brown has all the confidence in the world. He has the matchup. Makes a ton of sense. I think you factor in that. And again, we mentioned in the other video with Kansas City ranking dead last in defensive EPA this season when they're unable to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And I got that stat from Warren Sharp. It makes just too much sense here at the 70.5. If you want to take the 100 plus, again, I think there's a decent chance that he gets there as well. And then the other thing, Liam, Pro Football Focus as well. AJ Brown, 3rd most yards after the catch this year. So if he gets 4 catches, is there a shot that he gets over 70? I think realistically that could happen.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the last thing that we could leave people with here from a market perspective is, there's a lot of popular plays on the MVP for the Super Bowl, right? The obvious choices are the 2 quarterbacks. But then when you get beyond that, I think that there's almost a 0% chance that Hassan Reddick wins. He is an extremely popular play. They have not nerfed his lines corresponding to that. Defensive players very infrequently going to be receiving the nod here. This is a casual football audience. They are going to respect and appreciate the people that are making it happen on offense, first and foremost. Secondly, AJ Brown receiving a very small handle, receiving a very small percentage of the bet share. I think that among Eagles that are not named Jalen Hurts, he's probably the guy with the best chance of getting it. So I think that that's something to keep in mind here. Kamish is dropping a little bit of a free gem for you. It's like at plus 1,200, the guy who's probably, 3rd most likely to be the Super Bowl MVP, maybe 4th if you think that Travis Kelce is likely. There's not many people that you would put as head and shoulders candidates above him. I feel like at plus 1,200, that makes him a great candidate for MVP.
Yeah, and especially within his own team, right? You mentioned it's probably not going to be Reddick. And I think for other reasons as well, football reasons, of Kansas City's got a really good pass blocking offensive line. And they're not going to let Hassan Reddick beat them. But then also you look on the team, if it's not Hurts, who is it going to be? It's going to be Smith or it's probably going to be Brown, right? So if you think the Eagles are the side and you have a 1-in-3 shot potentially, and that's not perfect math. I mean, there's of course outliers in that data set, but to get just such significant odds. I mean, I've seen it as high as 18-1 for Brown to win MVP.
Sanders, Smith, Gainwell, they're all getting the same bet share as AJ Brown, which I think is foolish. So,
which, by the way, last 21 years there has not been a running back that has won Super Bowl MVP.
That's never stopped anybody, huh?
Yeah.
I think the only one with a chance is Isaiah Pacheco.
It's certainly not happening with the committee in Philly. So, but yeah, so just to recap on that one, AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards. If you want to get a little bit more risky with it, you could take him to get over the century mark, plus 300 on points bet, plus 260 at FanDuel. The second spot that we were going to give out, it actually just moved in the time that Liam and I were talking about this. We grabbed DeVonta Smith at over 4.5 at DraftKings at minus 150. Gave that out to the Discord as well. It's at 5.5 right now on DraftKings. It's still, Liam, you said it's 4.5 somewhere else at this point too?
Yeah. So depending on your jurisdiction, guys, I always tell people shop accordingly. every state has different sports books. They have different access. Bally Bet is a very terrible, in my opinion, offering in New York. It's one of the worst sports books you can sign up for. However, they got a minus 155. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And, Commissioner was talking about minus 150 on DraftKings. DraftKings has moved off this number. They moved to 5.5. They are now juicing the under. They want I think it's plus money. Either way, they want the money to come in the other way, right? They're trying to beg for money to come the other way. I think that when you can get a stale 4.5, it's probably worth taking. Then you look at how other markets are pricing it. I believe that the stale 4.5 is also on Bet Rivers at minus 175 chalk. So again, 20 cents of premium on their lines. Bet Rivers books in a lot of VIG, just as sports books go. That being said, though, they also don't put out the best number unless they think it's the sharp side. I'm quite confident of that. And in this case, they don't have the best number. They have the second best number because it's probably a good side. So I think that over 4.5 is the play here. I think over 5.5, you're getting too cute.
Yeah, I would agree as well with you, Liam. And here we'll pull up the props.cash here as well. Just to, again, visually, sometimes it's helpful to see these things. This is the hit rate for Smith at 4.5. You can see 14 out of the 19 games played this year. And then one of those games that he missed was in that NFC Championship game against San Francisco, where Philadelphia really just didn't throw the ball at all in the second half for obvious reasons if you watch that contest. If you move this to 5.5, all of a sudden you are looking at a 9 out of 19 hit rate, right? So Smith does land on 5 pretty frequently. And again, Liam's supporting with some market analysis here. Would not be surprising if, once again, this is a number that lands on exactly 5. Personally, I was willing to eat the juice on the 4.5. I know some people don't like to eat the 150 or heavier. Personally, 150 is more or less my limit. Like, I won't play 150 or higher much or very frequently, but when I do, it's for good reason. And this is for very, very good reason in this spot. I think Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts has struggled significantly to get the ball down the field since he suffered this shoulder injury late in the season. And what you've seen is because of the inaccuracies down the field, he's had to operate a lot more in the short passing game, rely a little bit more on yards after the catch. I think Smith, especially on like third and shorts and things like that, if they're not going to run the ball, and especially if Kansas City does show some ability to slow down the Philly rushing attack on those third and shorts, Smith will be a guy that I think could see some good volume in this spot. I think 8 targets, 5 catches, somewhere around there, I think makes a ton of sense.
Can't disagree with you. A lot of money came in on the over. Again, so we talked about from a market perspective, it's a popular play. It's a public over, but that's why DraftKings has moved the number. They don't want any more action at it. They want it to be, at a new number where they could potentially catch you. Oh, plus money on AJ Brown or on DeVonta Smith. Oh, and why has this happened on both of these numbers? It's probably because they're sharp numbers, right? It's like they won't leave a number hanging if they think it's a bad number for them. People want to play the over, right? We talked about that before. They tried to keep you off it with the juice. Didn't work. Okay, now let's move the number completely and try and entice people to stay on the over with plus money. I think that's the psychological trick that's being done here by the sportsbook. I think a lot of people are going to play into it, but I think sometimes sharp sports bettors will tell you it's better to play the right side at a number that's less appealing than you want than it is to play a bad side at a great number. Oh, I got a great number. Oh, it was plus 500. It was beautiful. It just didn't cash. That's not what we want, right? We want to find winning plays. We want to find plays that have value. So if this is supposed to happen 70% of the time, that's minus 230. That's not minus 155. That's not minus 175. So you got to shop for inefficiencies. That's how sharp players think. And I think that we have an opportunity for a sharp play here. If you could find that 4.5, take a little juice on it, but I think it's the right side.
Yeah, that's a great point. And people always ask me too, with the NBA player props video that I do every day, like, what number would you take this to? Meaning the juice. I would play the juice, again, like up to minus 150 in a lot of those situations, but I will never play the next number, right? If it moves from 4.5 assists to 5.5 assists, that's a totally different approach at that point. So I think that's great information. So again, DeVonta Smith, if you can get that 4.5, take it. I would not take the over 5.5 in that spot. Third play though, Liam, I'll let you take the lead on this because I think just anything related to Quez Watkins, I want to get your thoughts. It's been a very interesting lead up to the game with Watkins not playing hardly at all in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs for Philadelphia. And then you see an over under 1.5 on his receptions for the Super Bowl. Tell me what's going on in your head and what you're seeing in the market with Quez Watkins.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one because on the one hand, you are seeing juice on the over for Quez Watkins. He's got 62% of the handle right now at DraftKings for the over 12.5 yards. But then you kick it over to the receptions tag, and this is where it gets really interesting because in terms of receptions, right, he is basically one of the only guys that is being hammered, and I do mean hammered, to the under, right? So I want to give you guys this perspective, right? I'm looking at the VSIN splits on DraftKings. They have the handle to the over on receptions for AJ Brown to the tune of 82%, DeVonta Smith to the tune of 95% handle, Dallas Goedert to the tune of 66% handle, Jerick McKinnon to the tune of 66% handle, Kenneth Gainwell to the tune of 73% handle. There are only 2 players in the game that have juice to the under, that have everybody wants to come in and play their under on receiving props. Miles Sanders, under 1.5 receptions, has 80% of the handle. 99% of the handle is on Quez Watkins, under 1.5 receptions. That's absurd, right? I think that when you see 99% of the public on anything, you should run. You should try and jump in the opposite direction as fast as you possibly can. Do I think that there may be some sharp money mixed in? I mean, yeah, the public doesn't love to bet unders. So could that have been, a couple sharp players hammered the under and then the public steam chases and follows? Yeah, I mean, that's very possible. But when you see public bettors 99.9% of the time going to the over and they all are coalescing around one guy's under, all I would say is you will make more money long-term by playing the over than you will by playing the under when that's the case. 100%. This game, this iteration, I don't know. Hard to say. Maybe they all know that Quez Watkins broke his leg and it hasn't been. But outside of that, right, what is to stop him from getting some touches in this game? You look at the last game. So we talked about how defensively they were able to just play as though it was only a run. They're also up by 2 scores in a game that they have no offense coming back at them. Why would you pass? Why would I put my receivers out there to get clean hits when I'm throwing the ball to them in the midfield? Why would I do that? I could just run the ball, finish the game, and move on. Come back fresh, healthy. This is a much different game. This is against the best team in the NFL from the other side of the league. So it's like, yeah, they're going to have to play. They're going to have to try and score points. They're going to have to use all their weapons that they have. They're going to have to be creative. I think that Quez Watkins would offer an additional threat. He would offer somewhere else to put the ball. And that's what they're going to have to do. Kansas City doesn't have a bad defense. They don't have bad pass coverage. But if you spread them out across the field, if you give them multiple targets to think about, we just talked about DeVonta Smith. We just talked about AJ Brown. Yes, they're going to absorb some of the reception share, but people also have to remember there's Dallas Goedert. There's all these other guys that could get fed the ball. And when the Kansas City Chiefs are game planning for this game, they're thinking about those big offensive threats. They're thinking about the guys that they really need to shut down. Make somebody else beat you. That is the common theme. Quez Watkins is one of those guys that they're going to have to probably try and get the ball to get first downs, to get across. So I think that Quez Watkins, over 1.5 receptions, probably the sharper of the 2 plays, because he could get 7 yards on 2 receptions and cover this number for you. I think that the one danger is that he gets, a nice 12-yard play, and then he gets hit for a loss on the second one, ends at 10 yards, 2 receptions, and everybody goes home crying in their coffee. That, at least for me, is how I think with my my narrative-based brain here. But on top of that, I just think that Quez Watkins, when you're seeing respect at the numbers that came out originally, so I believe it was 10.5. Every book has basically moved off that. They moved over to 12.5. You could still find outlier numbers out there. I think that if you're looking for that, again, Bally Bet, they're asleep at the wheel. They almost always are. That's why they're not a very good sports book. That's why they probably kick you out if you win. But you can maybe win this time at 10.5. Everyone else has moved to 12.5. I think that's probably a sharp number if you're trying to board clear. But for me, I prefer the receptions to the receiving yards here. I think that over 1.5 receptions is probably the play.
We disagree slightly here, Liam, because for me, I would rather take a shot at something yards related than on the receptions. With Watkins, I think the biggest thing with the public is, and because I think there is a good amount of public money probably baked in there. They're looking at the last 2 games, and I'll pull up the game logs here as well so people can see this. Watkins, no catches on 1 target against San Francisco. The one thing in that game is, how long was that 1 target? It was 33 yards down the field, right? So potential deep threat. The game before that, again, like Liam said, I mean, you have 3 touchdowns in the first half. There's no need to involve guys like Watkins down the field. I mean, like from a player safety issue, like you want to get out of there healthy. You want to run the clock. You want to get out of there as quick as possible. Watkins also just is not a very good run blocker. So if you're going to be running the ball, Watkins is probably not going to see the field. And what we see is if you go look at the snap counts, this pretty much holds true, right? So passing snaps in the NFC Championship, 16. In the divisional round when they had an even bigger lead, even earlier in the game, only 7. But prior to that, he was on the field pretty significantly, right? From week 12 to week 18, played at least 22 or 25 offensive snaps on passing on plays that ended up being passes in that span. So for me, it's like I expect Watkins to be on the field in this one at the very least. I don't know how many catches he's going to get. I don't know how many yards he's going to get, but I'm willing to throw a dart here, right? I again, like we've talked about a couple of these other free picks that we've given out in the other videos. You have to be willing to look like a little bit of an idiot if Quez Watkins does not get a single target or a single catch in this game. I just find that to be unlikely, given the fact that, like you said, everyone's going to be keyed in on Brown, Smith, Goddard, and also this elite rushing attack, right? So if you can get Watkins to slip out, maybe down the seam or something like that at some point in the game, I think he's got some value here. My favorite way to target this personally is over 8.5 yards for his longest reception. And I grabbed this over at FanDuel, just a small stab, just a little fun money on the game. Like this is not a VIP play, not a play that I'm sending people like bet significant amount of money on. But when Watkins has had multiple catches in a game, which our guy Liam here is saying, looking at the market, is a decent chance, he pretty much always gets to the over 9 here. And I'll pull up props.cash. You can look at longest reception here. There's a lot of games in here where he hasn't had a catch, right? Which is, again, where I'm telling you, you have to be prepared and be comfortable looking like an idiot if he doesn't have a catch in this game. But when he's had catches, it's almost always going at least once during that game for 9 yards or more. He's been utilized as a deep threat quite frequently throughout the season. If you go back and look at his longest catches in games, 14, 19, 16, 30, 22, 50, 23, especially towards the second half of the season. So for me, like Quez Watkins, it's no fun if Quez Watkins catches a little screen behind the line of scrimmage and goes for 4 yards one time in the game, right? Like we want to see Quez Watkins deep down the field, gets behind the defense, and he's the no-name guy, right, that everybody's talking about on Monday morning in their Zoom meetings and with their office workers. Oh my God, did you know who Quez Watkins was? I did, right? Liam and Kamish talked about him on the phone, stuff like that. So there's always at least one of those guys in the Super Bowl. We always see quote unquote like randos in the end zone or coming up with a big play at an opportune time. I think Watkins fits the bill in this spot. I think the recency bias has people a little bit cold on him, but the Eagles they're creative. They're also very aggressive offensively. So I would not be surprised even early in the game to see them take a deep shot and maybe go Watkins' way in this spot. So Liam, it sounds like over 1.5 receptions is your favorite way to target Watkins. Personally, I like the over 8.5 for that longest catch, because if he does have only one catch, you could have one catch with 9 yards, right? So you don't need the over 10.5, you don't need the over 12.5, and you don't need the over 1.5 receptions. You could have one catch for 9 yards, and the books win everywhere else except for the over 8.5 on the longest catch in that spot.
I love it. I will say this. I think that that's a great way to play it. I think that in terms of preference, I preference the over 1.5 receptions. Why? It's not because I even think it's more likely. It's plus 150. I don't have to be right about this every time. You know, they're pricing it as a 40% outcome. If it happens 45% of the time, I'm laughing. If it happens 50% of the time, I'm making money. If it happens 60% of the time, I'm a fucking bookmaker and they're a square. So it's like, this is the kind of thing that you have to be willing to take risks in this business. 99% of people are willing to say he's not going to do it. That normally doesn't work out. I'm willing to say at plus 150 for a 40% chance, it does work out. That is the difference. So I think that, you know, when you look at a smart bookmaker like Pinnacle, one of the sharpest bookmakers on the planet, they are offering you the best price on both. But no one's taking it on the other side. There's no one to take the over, right? Everybody's on, I want to hammer the under. I want to hammer the under. And Pinnacle, which will take a big limit, is saying, please come in. I know it's minus 180 elsewhere. It's minus 179 here. They'll give you plus 156 on the other side because no one will take it, right? They know. So they'll give you the best price on both sides. You'll come in and hammer the under, which is the popular side, which is the side that's getting hammered everywhere else, which is moving to a worse number everywhere else. But yet, why with 99% of the money is it not plus 400? That's what you have to ask yourself. Why? What is it? Is this not a responsible bookmaker? Do they not want to get equal action on both sides? I could tell you for a fact, no, they fucking don't. They have no interest in getting action on both sides. They want action that is going to be dead. They want action that's going to lose. So if they really thought, man, this is a 50-50 outcome, we better respect this money coming in on the under, Quez Watkins under would be minus 400. And it's not. It's minus 180, and they're going to keep it there because people are going to come in and play it. I'm going to be on the other side. Take the over.
So, Liam, just playing devil's advocate right here, is there an angle where a book says to themselves, hey, you know what? There's not a ton of money on this play with Watkins. The splits have a pretty significant disparity, but you know what? We're willing to pay that, right? You know, it's Quez Watkins. We'll eat our money on the AJ Browns and the DeVonta Smiths and the Isaiah Pacheco's or wherever else across the board where they feel very confident. And this is sort of like a free play that they're giving out to bettors, and they think, here 50 people over here cash on Quez Watkins. What would you say to someone asking that question?
I would say this. Why, with all the money on AJ Brown and these guys that we know they're going to be popular. We know they're going to be the plays that the average person goes to pick to click. Why is that over plus 116? But Quez Watkins over is plus 150. And it's actually a stronger disparity on the Quez Watkins line. It's because the only people that would come in and play that plus 150 are sharps. Anybody would come in and play the plus 116 if they don't listen to the show maybe. But other thing, it's like, this is the reason why we have these conversations. I think that the bookmaker knows exactly what they're doing. They know that plus 150, that doesn't even sound that appealing, right? Even right now, just say it's like, wow, he didn't get it in his last two games. It's only plus 150. It's like, yeah, that's a hard sell. I often try and encourage people. The hard bet to make often is the right bet. It's the bet that's easy. It's the bet that's like, this is a no-brainer. I'm just going to hammer this. That doesn't come through, right? Especially on something as public as the Super Bowl. If everybody could do it, no one would make money on the sports books, right? What they do instead is they give you things that are enticing, that you want to click, and you click it and it doesn't happen. When it's hard to click, it's often the right thing to click. It's hard to click Quez Watkins over 1.5. Really? He didn't get it last game. I don't know. He hasn't gotten it every game. At plus 150, when 99% of people say to do the opposite, it doesn't. They could be like Quez Watkins over or under 1.5 showers tomorrow, plus 150. If 99% of people are on the under, geez, my man's getting clean as hell. Like I don't care. That's the way that my brain works, and I'll continue to do it because more often than not, the 99% are dead wrong.
Yep. And if you look back to that recency bias, right, it's just the last two games, it's right in front of everybody's mind. But if you go look at a box score and you think about where people are going to go for stats, right? If you have to dig deeper for stats, probably less people looking at it, right? If it's behind a paywall, if it's data that you've collected yourself that you can't even get publicly available, there's probably not a lot of people looking at it. But where does everybody go, right? ESPN, game log, ESPN box score, stuff like that. Very easy to see. Watkins had one catch against Dallas, none against New Orleans, 2 against New York in week 18, a game that a lot of people were throwing out because it wasn't against the starters, and then no catches the last 2 weeks. So like Liam said, it's very easy to look at that and say, of course, under 1.5, or of course, under on the yards, under on everything, Watkins, right? I think he's a matchup dependent player. I think this is a spot where, especially, and again, too, like, we're not even talking about this, but L'Jarius Sneed, the slot corner for Kansas City, left that game in the AFC Championship against the Bengals with an injury. Everyone's going to tell you they're 100% leading up to the Super Bowl. Is he? I don't know, right? Like, could that be a spot that maybe Philly at least test in the early going? I'm not throwing $1 million on Watkins in this spot, but I think you're potentially missing the boat if you're not at least throwing a dart or taking a small stab here.
And can I give you some more reason to love this? Quez Watkins, one career game versus the Kansas City Chiefs in 2021, 33 yards, tripled up what he's got projected, 3 receptions, average reception, 11 yards. So that covers Kamish, that covers myself, that covers every Quez Watkins over prop. Last time this team played, he got it by a lot. Worth noting.
Really good stuff, man. Appreciate you joining as always. Just to recap, we have the first 2 plays that we talked about were AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards. DeVonta Smith, if you can get it over 4.5, go grab it. If not, probably stay away from there. Wish we could have got that out a little bit sooner. But again, if you're interested in stuff like that, we do have a Discord that Liam and I are both in. That link is in the description below. And then Watkins, I think Liam and I have talked you into anything that you want on Quez Watkins, right? If you want the over on the longest reception, the over on the receptions, over on the receiving yards, over on the shower, whatever it is, right? Like I think Watkins
if it's plus 150.
If it's plus 150, I think he gets on the field. I think he's at least targeted in this game. I'd be very surprised if we see him over on the sidelines with his hands in his pocket on Sunday evening. So that's what we like in this spot. Again, give Liam a follow. The dude's a savant in the UFC, and then anything market related. If it's NFL, MLB, the NBA, college football, anything that you want. If you just want a market opinion or a market analysis on it, dude is an expert researcher. He's a great thought partner. Will help you understand what the sports book's perspective is in that. He's got his own YouTube channel at Liam Picks Fights as well. I don't know anything about the UFC, and this dude has helped me have some fun watching the sport just because I get to put in my little plus 850 on FanDuel or wherever else he's taking action, and I get to walk out of there with a little bit more money than I had before the day started. So appreciate him a ton. Liam, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just want to say, guys, always gamble legally, responsibly within your means. I think that as far as we're concerned here, a lot of good options. So pick the ones that you like the best. Go through, do your own research, make sure that the plays line up with your heart. But I think that we try to give you a perspective on not only what our plays are, but why we get there, what we think about. And that is for most people the hardest thing is, how do I develop my own process? You teach somebody what your play is, they can maybe eat for one day. But if you teach somebody your process, they can eat for a long time. So I teach people, note-taking, all these different kinds of things, aspects of handicapping at Liam Picks Fights. You can find my educational content, my MMA stuff as well on YouTube, everywhere, Liam Picks Fights. Truly appreciate the support. And guys, the commish is killing it over here. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video as well if you haven't already. We're going to continue to do great work together, but he does a lot of great work himself. Daily basis posting his NBA player props. The guy hardly ever misses. So God bless, and truly appreciate the opportunity, my brother.
Sounds good. Well, everybody, good luck on your action. I will have one more video that I'll probably put out on the tight ends, and then of course look for that NBA daily player prop content as well. Good luck on everything, and we will see you guys later.